So, being in the middle of this snug project, I thought it would be a good time to test out the Vibratory Tumbler from Central Machinery, which is a brand of Harbor Freight. And I know almost nothing about vibratory tumblers other than places like Starrett use them to deburr and put an even finish on their small parts. So I thought, what the heck, I'll try it. This one's fairly inexpensive. This is the small one. They sell two different sizes at Harbor Freight. They have two kinds of media, at least in my store. This one's to remove rust and not round edges, but put a soft finish on. So we're going to see if it deburrs these edges at all. I also have a set of abrasives that is ceramic, and that one is to polish. So I don't know if that one would be good, but we're going to try this one. Again, I have almost no experience with this, but the concept's pretty simple. So you just take the top off and oh, I see, a rubbery gasket holding it down besides the wing nut, and load the inside up here with some abrasive media, throw your parts in, wait a couple hours, and it should be done. Now, again, I'm not sure how this is going to work out, so I will start with this rust cutting abrasive resin, which is sort of rubbery like stuff, and see how that goes. And here's some of the media right here, and actually it's not very rubbery. Interesting. They're sort of plasticky. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. The unit is, well, without the top on. It's reasonably quiet with the top snug down, as I'll show you in a moment. This container is plastic, and from reading online, they used to sell replacement containers. They don't anymore, so when this wears out, because the media is going to abrade the inside as well, you're going to have to just replace the whole unit, it seems. Some of the higher end models that I've seen, this is like, this one was like 50, 60 bucks, I forget the exact price. The more expensive models, like the name brand ones, are thousands and up. But I think their buckets are rubber lined or rubber, which is probably a lot more abrasive resistant. They don't wear out as quickly. So I'm sure there's pluses and minuses to it. Supposedly, you leave your parts in these things for a couple of hours. The Harbor Freight one says do not submerge parts, does not work with liquid, like some of the better and more advanced ones that I could find online. Give me a second to pour some media in and put the parts in, and we'll try this guy. Here's the parts beforehand. This is for the current project, my snug project. And this is sort of going to be an intermission, and you can see the finish on them right now, and we will put them in this device and see how they come out. Just loaded it up with abrasive media. We toss the parts in. I'm going to put the lid on, and it's got a rubber gasket that holds it down, I guess in case the wing nut loosens, or maybe to help prevent the wing nut from loosening, because you can put a little preload on the threads this way by tightening it down. That's probably a good idea. And the unit seems okay. It's nothing great, but then again, it's not thousands of dollars either, like you could be paying if you got a high-end model. So sometimes you get what you pay for, but if you can't afford thousands of dollars to try out a tumbler, then this might be a good choice for you. Let's give this a shot. So there it is. And we'll come back in a couple hours and see how it's done. It is doing pretty well. It's not vibrating off the table or anything, so that's a good plus. I got a bit curious after running the thing for about 60 seconds, see what the parts, whether they submerged or stay floating. And they submerged. They are heavier than the material, or denser than the material, so I guess that makes sense. So we're going to put it back together, let it go for a couple hours. We'll come back and see what we've got. We've been running 2 hours, so we can shut it down. And the unit stayed put. It gets only slightly warm to the touch. That's a very positive sign for it. It's a little bit warmer underneath where it's direct contact with the motor. Actually, the center spring is that's touching the motor is too hot to touch. It'll burn you. But let's see how the parts turned out. Finish is actually really nice. And the little bits of stuff, they get absolutely everywhere. I gotta pry these guys out of here. It's amazing. I didn't think they'd ever get in there, but look at how nice that finish is. Kind of looks like combination between polished and sandblasted. It's really surprisingly good. So let me clean these guys up. We'll bring you back. So there's with some better light, and the finish is really nice. It's sort of this shiny, sparkly finish. And there's even some little green bits inside where the threads are. It's really amazing. It doesn't, like they said, it doesn't take off edges, so I purposely did not deburr these parts, and the burrs are still left. So I'll have to take those off manually, but that's kind of interesting. Overall, the finish is kind of neat, though. I didn't make any easy way to unload the unit, so I just poured it in the manual that I opened up, and then I just fold the manual up and pour it into the container. So they're pretty generous. It was actually hard to get all of these back in here. It overflowed, and I had to vibrate it to get them to settle before they fit, so that's kind of interesting. Overall, the thing worked out pretty well. I have the second half of this project to go, and I will put those parts in, and I will use a different media for those, and we'll see how that one works out. So we're getting close to done. Here are the 3 parts, including the one I drilled way off center, and the fixture back there with the 2 clearance holes for the holes I drilled through it. And we're going to use the tumbler. We're going to try a different kind of media that is light deburring and polishing on these 2 parts. So here's a close-up of the finish quality, and I'm not very happy with how straight the saw went. I got it better on the second cut, but it still needed like another ½ degree. And this is a heat treated part that still has heat treatment oxides all over it. I'm just going to toss that one in there. Actually, the previous stuff that I used was for rust removal, and that might have been a better choice, but we're going to give this a shot anyways. So we're going to toss these in with this ceramic media, and I guess I could put them on opposite sides. They don't have to be together. And let me put the top on and we'll fire it up. So we're going to let it run about 2 hours, and we'll just fire it up. And the ceramic media, being larger and not plastic based, is definitely louder. So anyways, I will turn that back on after I'm not shooting, and I'll bring you back in a little while to let you see what the finish change is. 2 hours have gone by. Let's see what the finish looks like. So I got all the ceramic media back in the container. It's actually very challenging to do. It was hard to even get out, and it breaks down into a fine powder. The parts come coated in it, so I need to clean them off before we can get a better evaluation. They're completely coated. So the results couldn't be more different. This is what the other media comes out that was designed to pull off rust. And this is the polishing media, ceramic polishing abrasive, which is kind of funny. This is closer to sandblasted, which I find very interesting. And this finish obviously is a lot shinier, and that's the plastic media. So it does do a nice job of rounding over edges, and it did sort of remove the mill scale. It looks like it would have taken a bit longer. The pieces are a bit large to get into nooks and crannies, so that's part of the problem, I think. Maybe it breaks down, maybe you can use it with water, although this particular vibrating tumbler says it's not supposed to be used with water. And it doesn't have a fan. I thought it did. It just has an out of balance weight in the bottom, and this thing gets frickin' hot. So if you leave this on for any long period of time, I think it's gonna self-destruct. The motor itself, all the parts in here that I can reach are really too hot to touch, and that's only 2 hours on. What if you wanted to run 4 or 5 hours? So anyways, that's a problem. So I like the other finish better, so I'm going to put it in with the other media and run it for a couple hours or a little less and see what happens. So the big question for me is, will this guy overheat in the meantime? Because it's running ridiculously hot, and it's in the 50s outside right now, which is pretty cold for Southern California. If I tried to run this in summer, I shudder to think, because you know, they could have added a fan with the out of balance counterweight, you know, the weight in the bottom. Anyways, so there's the finish, and it's very even. The tumbler is a great way to get a really even finish on your parts, and surprises me, I've got to say. Here is the part that had the mill scale. The ceramic ones didn't get it all off in the 2 hours I ran it for. Got it almost all off with the plastic with embedded abrasive. That worked pretty well. My final take on the Vibratory Tumbler is as follows. It's a pretty decent unit for the money. I have concerns about heat and longevity, but time will tell on that one. This is the small one, the 5-pound one in the $50 to $60 range. Harbor Freight also makes an 18-pound version that supports wet media, and adding liquid can, besides water and maybe some other kind of grinding solution, can prevent loading of the materials and maybe even a better finish. Don't know exactly. It does include a drain to drain the liquid out before you remove the media on the bigger one, so that's kind of nice. They use the same motor, at least based on the loading on the outside of the box. They both said 0.6 amps at 120 volts, so I'm assuming the motors are the same. So you're not going to get more intense vibrations, you're just going to have larger capacity because it's a bigger drum. I've tried 2 of the different types of tumbler media. They also have walnut shells and walnut shells with abrasive added. There's stainless steel shot and a bunch of other media out there that all can create interesting finishes. So it might be worth investigating at some point. The whole experience was kind of enjoyable, and I really like the finish that the rust cutting abrasive resin gives. It's kind of a sparkly finish, sort of sandblasted, but better than sandblasted. So anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you find it useful. Hope to see you next time.